as you know, Hollywood hates religion, but in particularity, they hate Christianity and Catholicism. And M.I.A., who was raised part of the Hindu faith, right? She recently converted to Christianity after not a near-death experience, but what would be classified as like a...
She said she had a vision of Jesus Christ that turned her world upside down.
So she had this experience and started preaching about this in her Twitter and whatnot. And she sang the song Paper Planes, which I would like to... I think I've told this story on the show before, but me and my friends had our own version of Rick Rolling, which was sending this song to each other because we all just hated the song.
It's funny because, like, obviously people know that song mainly from Superbad.
Yes.
And then after that, it went viral on TikTok all over again.
Yeah.
And now I'm just sick of it and I never want to hear it again. No offense to M.I.A.
I just think every musician now is like praying for the day they get their rebirth on TikTok.
Right.
Like every song from every generation now has the possibility to go viral.
Anything could happen.
Anything. Like
literally
literally
so many.
Like every former one-hit wonder is like checking Twitter and TikTok every day and looking up their music to see if like today is the day that they go viral. Like I imagine like Kesha had made the song TikTok right before TikTok became a thing. It would have been the original anthem.
Also, why has it not come back?
I think it did. For a little bit.
It did. Here is M.I.A.'s new way of going viral. She
Politics.
tweeted, "The fact that the biggest backlash in my career and life I'm facing after saying Jesus is real is such a revelation to me. People who control these apps rather me be a bad girl than a good one."
And we talk about that all the time. Like it sounds like a paint by numbers explanation of Hollywood. It said that they promote negative behavior and degeneracy, but you know, if the shoe fits.
I'm waiting for the Jeffree Star and M.I.A. collab.
With Donald Trump. I'm telling you. They got to all get together and save America together. Or she's not even allowed in America. She's a British citizen. She's not.
She's had restricted access since like 2006. But like
Why?
if she's been very outspoken about a lot of controversial political issues. She herself is a refugee from Sri Lanka. She's part of a very specific ethnic group there that she talks about the ways that they've been targeted. She basically was driven out of that country, and she's talked about other things like Palestine. She said she's anti-vax.
This says that her
about
radical
5G.
political activism, which was included in supporting the U.S., it designated the U.S. a terrorist group. That's very specific.
Also, you know who I imagine she would hang out with is Letitia Wright. Because Letitia Wright was like, she was like, I don't know about the vaccine based on purely on religious grounds, right? Like, I don't want to take it and stuff like this. She's like, look, I imagine them hanging out.
I've also seen M.I.A. getting accused of being anti-black, which makes me think she probably was anti-BLM a couple of years ago, and then people just ran with that conclusion. But I think, like, if Get Woke, Go Broke is a real phenomenon that we're able to observe, then it seems like going, quote, anti-woke is like the next sly career boost you can give yourself.
I was going to say, what are the specific
I haven't heard anything about M.I.A. since she started tweeting.
Also, like, what are the specific consequences that she's faced, right? People being like, I don't agree with you, or...
People are streaming her music more.
Yeah. Like,
that's what the
consequences
consequences
are.
consequences.
Let's face it. When conservatives find out that somebody has one single view that they agree with, they're like, I like it. I'm going to go buy all their music because they have this one view that I like. I'm like, dude, hold on.
And again, like there are people overreacting saying like M.I.A. just exposed the Hollywood elite cabal and like maybe she's just doing her own thing and voicing her own opinions, which is cool and like fine. I have no problem with that. But now people are responding to this tweet about her Christian faith, and
it just feels like
they're
such a
using all the other reasons to hate her for her faith that have nothing to do with what she said about it. So then people responded with like that picture of her and Candace Owens from back in October. And one person said, I still like your music, but I feel like blaming backlash you faced on your belief in Jesus is a bit of a straw man when you've done stuff that is much more divisive.
She is a pretty divisive figure. Also, I want to kind of put a timeline.
What backlash? Like, I'm still not getting it.
It's Twitter backlash. It's a lot of Twitter backlash.
I did see some people trashing her, and they were basically saying, like, why do Christians always think that they're the victims, blah, blah, blah. You guys control all of the power institutions.
I get that. You upset people on Twitter, but, like, she says, biggest backlash in my career. Like, are there any professional consequences for her? Did she get dropped from her label? Did she not producing music? Like you said before.
Well, weirdly enough, she's about to drop more music.
And the other thing is, like, well, she also acknowledges her fans. She's like, she calls her fans progressives. But I want to give like a funny timeline here. What do you remember? What year the Janet Jackson incident was with Justin Timberlake at the Super Bowl? Was that 2004?
Yeah, it was early 2000s.
Okay, so I was like thinking, like, America, like we've had this gentle slide into degeneracy, but it's kind of more of like a slope, because she got in trouble for flipping people off at the Super Bowl in 2012, and that was only 10 years ago. And I just can't imagine you getting in trouble for flipping someone off at the Super Bowl now if you were like a musical or like flipping off the crowd.
Well, we've become moralistic about the most ridiculous and obscure things.
Which is funny too, because like Stone Cold Steve Austin, whose whole thing back in the 90s was to flip off the camera when he was when he was a wrestler. Like now, whenever they film him, whenever he makes like a comeback to the company for an appearance, they have to film him from like the hands down so that they don't show him doing the middle fingers in the air, because it's like PG on cable television.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I just saw from M.I.A's Twitter account is she posted a poll about a month ago saying, Moses tweets the 10 Commandments. Would you retweet, like, or report?
That is such a boomer. Like, I love it. It's like your grandma tweeting the picture of Donald Trump riding
like for Jesus, ignore if you love the devil.
Like those
ignore if you hate Donald Trump.
Like,
or no, like for Q.
Yeah.
Ignore for the Hollywood Bohemian Grove cabal.
It's such your aunt on Facebook.
So like 39%, which is a plurality, clicked on report. So clearly she's getting a lot of backlash.
Also, why is it that celebrities are still allowed to like thank God at award shows, but they're just not allowed to embody it?
Well, it's only in a self-congratulatory way that you're allowed to say that.
Only when they've won something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, Justin Bieber, for instance, he's very like publicly Christian.
But he goes to a mega church, right? He goes to
Hillsong.
He goes to Hillsong, which has its own issues, because like Chris Pratt, who kind of sort of went to Hillsong
Why
a couple of times.
Why is he the only one who has to take the heat for that, by the way? All the other celebrities that go to Hillsong don't get anything.
Because
including the Jenners.
No, right. Including the Kardashians, but also like he wore the Gadsden flag shirt once, and that sent him over the edge for people.
He's Canadian. He doesn't know.
He didn't know what it means. He's like, I just thought the snake
It is kind of weird to wear that as a Canadian, right? It's like not connected to your history at all.
Yeah, they don't get it. Being serious,
he's like, wow, cool snake.
No, I honestly believe he did not know what it was. Like,
and I'm just like, this is why I say Chris Pratt is the personified banana nut muffin. Like, he is the least controversial person, in my opinion.
Better explain that, please. Just because he is.
I just don't think that he's the demonic right winger that they're claiming he is. Also, I doubt that M.I.A. is Catholic. I think she's just like generally a believer in Jesus, because I saw that she posted a meme of Pope Francis holding up one of her records instead of the Eucharist.
Wait, it was a Photoshop?
Yeah.
No, that was real, bro.
No, yeah. Pope Francis loves M.I.A. and
He's a
listens to her
huge
music
fan.
all the time.
Well, hey, you never know. Like these days, they'll get their promotion any way they can get it. Does a lot of this come from just the years of Hollywood demonizing the Catholic Church in their media?
I wouldn't say Catholic Church. I think Christianity in general. But also, like, what are you saying? Does this come from? Like, yeah, she may face a backlash on Twitter.
The non-existent
I stand
backlash
by, like,
that we don't know what it is.
I don't understand what she's complaining about. Like, you posting your opinion on Twitter.
Well, she
like,
said that.
she
said that tons,
like,
as soon as she said this, tons of articles were all written in unison about her.
Yeah,
they were all
because
like,
it's
unanimously
the
negative.
begining of the year. There's nothing going on.
Well, this was.
I'm just telling you, like,
she's been going on for months. Though,
yeah, that's fine. But she has. Personally, my take on this is like, maybe there are people who are arguing with her on Twitter. That's sort of the nature of Twitter.
Yeah.
I think that maybe there are people who are upset with her for posting this. That could be totally real. But like, she herself is making this into a bigger deal than it actually is.
Well, it benefits her.
It completely benefits her. She has not produced any evidence of any professional consequence. Like you both have mentioned, her music's getting streamed more. She's getting more publicity right before she releases music. Like, I believe that there is a bias against Christianity on a lot of these tech platforms and in Hollywood. I just don't know that M.I.A. right now is being the prime example.
Well, I think that if M.I.A. had started tweeting about being anti-vax or anti-5G or any of these things pre-Elon Musk Twitter, she might have been censored, but now she's perfectly free to say whatever she wants, and I think she's just responding to the backlash to increase her visibility.
She also loses because I was curious. It's like if I look up M.I.A. on just Google, right? It's like what are the results going to be? And they aren't even about her. They're about the wrestler M.I.A, and they're about the Miami International Airport. So maybe her hope was like one day I want more search results.
You need the punctuation.
Let's talk about examples of
I put .I.A. Like that's me. That's Miami International Airport. Sorry.
But what about examples of celebrities who are a lot bigger than M.I.A, like a Mark Wahlberg, who are publicly outspoken Christians? And I'm just thinking of like Kate Moss, more or less like framing Mark Wahlberg in the headlines for some ambiguous misconduct over their Calvin Klein photo shoot, saying, he made me uncomfortable because he walked in with a posse. Like, that was ridiculous. But I think
that wasn't Mark Wahlberg. That was Marky Mark. Different time.
Different guy, right?
Different guy entirely.
I think that, like, if you're in show business, once people know that you're Christian, then they come up with this narrative that you have a bunch of political stances they hate. And then they go on to conjuring all of the reasons they want to assassinate your character.
But that's not true all around, right? Like, the Kardashians claim to be nominally Christian.
Yeah, but they don't really talk about
nominally
it.
Christian.
They did. They went through a huge phase where they talked about it. They all went and got baptized. They very publicly all go to Hillsong. Like, I think it's a tax fraud shelter, but Kris Kardashian has her own church. Like, on the episodes, I think she's asked, like, multiple of them have been married. I don't know how seriously Christian, but in Christian ceremonies, like, it's selective, right? So not everyone is a target for this. There are some people who are allowed to be Christian.
They decide they want to assassinate the character of that particular person.
Yeah.
It's also like you have to be, for some of them.
It depends on how serious they think you are about your faith. And the more seriously you take it, the more of a threat they believe you to be.
And there's like a weird middle ground where like you can be serious about it, but you're just not working in the industry well enough. Yeah. Like you're doing faith-based films and you're not really a threat.
Like after Passion of the Christ.
But if you're Mel Gibson and you're dug in like a tick into an industry with millions upon...
Thank you.
Wait.
Is that loud enough to your liking, Brad?
What's that noise?
P-A-R-T. Why? Because I...
Name that movie. No?
I cannot.
No? Anybody?
Well, you've already named it.
I did.
Is that like a roller coaster? What happened?
So if you're Mel Gibson and you're dug in like a tick in an industry where you have millions.
It wasn't a roller coaster? There's like a boom in the beginning of that.
Yeah. Sounds of it. And Mel Gibson has like millions upon millions of dollars invested in production companies and making movies, that are not, he made, was it Father Stew? He was a producer on with Mark Wahlberg.
He's got the friends that he needs to have.
So he's like, it's really funny because what you'll see is like, if you guys, I don't know if you guys peruse like the trades or anything like that, but if you go to a website like Cinema Blend, and you look up Mel Gibson any time of the year that isn't a time his movies are coming out, the articles will inherently be negative. But if it's a time when the movies are coming out and the production company down the line is starting to commission articles that are not so unfavorable, you'll see a jump, like a change in tone about how they talk about his work for just the point in time until that movie comes out. Then they go back to being, he was anti-Semitic back in 2008. And he's like, I get to give up my Laker tickets.
Mark
or whatever.
Wahlberg and that incident when he was a kid where I guess him and a bunch of other white kids were like chasing a black kid.
I never hear that get brought up. I feel like he gets off the hook for
He'll
that
do a bunch of stuff. He'll be in the news for a while. It'll get brought up. No one like super talks about it. They just sort of reference it.
And then it goes away. Yeah. Like, and it's like because they don't address it. Like it's worse if you end up...
I think what happens is like it's like falling down the Google rabbit hole to a certain extent. Like the actual details of the crime, no one really knows, but whoever's writing their article sees that it's sort of referenced somewhere else. And so they put one line in about their article, like enough to keep it alive, but no actual information on it.
I guess it would be different if the person involved was still talking about it, like whoever the incident was, stuff like that. But the point is, I do think that it paints a bit of a target on your back. It's also interesting to see, like, if we're talking about M.I.A.'s talking about progressives having a problem with it, which are very tolerant of religions outside of America, but for some reason not, religions with just as many issues, right? But they're just not tolerant. And it always feels like everyone feels like the grass is greener elsewhere and that you're just not allowed to judge cultures elsewhere. But I think this is born out of Hollywood's anti-Christian stance, right? Though if you I just started watching the movie about Kurt Warner the other night. I didn't get through it entirely. The one about, it's a faith-based film, right? But as soon as you make that movie, you're categorized, you're labeled, and it's pushed off to a sector of Hollywood that is kept almost invisible. There's another movie that I keep talking about that I really want to see, starring Jim Caviezel, called The Sound of Freedom, which was about a Homeland Security agent and human trafficking. And Hollywood doesn't want to talk about human trafficking, right? Not in this context. And that movie got buried by production companies. Never, if it got released, I saw somebody in the chat when I mentioned it once saying that they saw it. I couldn't find it available anywhere. I couldn't find it available on Amazon Prime to buy. The website still had the trailer listed as like, you'll be able to get it this date. That date is come and gone. And he's another one. Jim Caviezel is another person who's very religious. He played Christ in Passion of the Christ. And he's one who got blacklisted for a lot of years. He was on an upward trajectory in the early 2000s, Count of Monte Cristo, Frequency, all of these roles. And there was a lot of talk about people wanting him to play Superman in the 2006 Superman movie, only to be like Mel Gibson calls him and he goes, want to ruin your career with me?
Well,
makes Passion of the Christ, doesn't get any big name roles until he does Person of Interest in 2016 with Jonathan Nolan. But that's a TV show.
I think this is still just like selective enforcement. Like, imagine with Ye, he literally puts out an album of gospel music called Jesus is King. And up until just in 2022, his career was doing insanely well. Yeah. And he wasn't receiving, at least from what I saw, backlash for being outspoken about his Christian faith. So it's just selectively enforced against whoever they choose.
Yeah. And I mean, his goes way back, far past there, to like Jesus Walks in old albums and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just one of those things. It will always be a topic of discussion. It will always be interesting to see how it's selectively enforced, because it does feel like some of those movies, like the movie that I was talking about, the Kurt Warner movie, got fairly decent reviews, but it's all gauged against the scale of like, it's pretty good for a faith-based film. But that's when we get to talking about the ghettoization of these industries, right? Like if you label yourself, and this is like what we were talking about, whether we're talking Ariel Pink or even Jeffree Star, the Ariel Pink and the banjo guy or the drummer from Mumford & Sons, who got in trouble for the evil crime of liking an Andy No book, did a song together about the Hunter Biden laptop because you've been ghettoized to not work in the mainstream industry. And it is weirdly enforced. Yeah. Why is this person
there was a couple years ago, some like pop country girl, like who sang Christian music and was like specifically on Christian radio, who had some song, I can't really think of what it was called, but you used to hear it all the time on the radio, that got really big. And it was very clearly, if you listen to it, basically a Christian pop song. But she was like, well, it's not, I am a Christian, but I do pop music. And she was clearly trying to convert to just charting in the pop. And as far as I know, I can't remember her name, but I think she has successfully transitioned, even though that initial song was right on the line, right?
It's like when Jewel tried to become like a normal pop star rather than the weird folk pop star. Yeah.
I can't really respect that, because you're just skirting around the issue when like you're the one who put your art out there. It's your responsibility to speak for what you put out there, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're allowed to grow as an artist. You're allowed to change, but did you do that because you actually grew as an artist, or was it because the label came to you and said, you're more marketable this way?
Katy Perry, for instance.
I still don't care. Like, I still say make your money. Like, it's like, it depends on how religious were they. Like, how religious were they? Did they use that as a means of writing early on? They found a little bit of success there, but they always wanted to branch out.
I think that's exactly what happened to Katy Perry. Like, she was a Christian singer for the longest time.
What was an example of a Christian song of hers? I've never heard.
Well, of course, no one heard of her at that time, but she was picked up as a Christian artist. Yeah. And then
her parents
pivoted
were like evangelical
to
pastors.
pop.
Like, it was a big part of her life.
And then she talked about that when she moved to Kentucky or wherever she moved.
Yeah.
Which I think is where she grew up, maybe? Like, she's not originally from California, as far as
she's
I know.
not from California, but she's not from Kentucky either.
She also voted for what's his name in the California election. That was really funny. So, like I said, we're going to continue to see stuff like this. You'll never see a harmonization of this industry, right? Where like they will be able to be both Christian, Catholic, or whatever, and work in the mainstream industry with their music. All of it gets labeled Flyleaf, pushed to the edges of it. Creed was religious, right? Like, does anybody like listen to Creed that doesn't either like listen to Christian music?
There was definitely a heyday for like
of,
Christian alternative rock, Christian metalcore, Christian rap.
There are some great memes about that are like.
And I think
incredible.
that there is like a conversation worth having. Like, can you be a Christian without having to make it like, if it is personally your whole identity, but in everything you do you need to only be restricted by like, oh, well, for a Christian artist, that's pretty good. Like, I think there are tons of people, like if we're going back to our favorite example, Chris Pratt, like he's a Christian. He's been pretty open about it. It's never really been a secret, but he doesn't only play religious people in religious movies. Like, I could see wanting to be able to keep your faith private, especially if you are an actor or something else. Like, you can live by the tenets but also not need to account for all Christians, right? We talked about this when what's his name, who's crazy and married to Mia Goth,
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf converted to Catholicism, right? Like, he was very excited about it, very devout.
Yeah, the Padre Pio movie is in limbo now. Like, no one has any idea where to find it, if it's going to come out ever.
There's more misinformation about Padre Pio than there is about
like, is Shia LaBeouf getting blacklisted now?
Yeah, I mean,
he's
he might
about to go to trial in April. There's no news on what's happening with his movie.
It also speaks a lot to Hollywood that she'll be blacklisted for your religion, but not for like violence,
committing sexual battery, possibly.
Granted, we don't
know, but
innocent until proven guilty. I don't know anything about it. I do know that he is solely responsible for the panicky male lead trope that I hate so much.
Really?
I do not look like it worked when he did it. When he's going, I mean, it's kind of a Jeff Goldblum thing before that.
You're right.
Yes. Go. This. It's like, but it works when Jeff Goldblum does it because he's next to cool Will Smith, who's not doing that in Independence Day, where he's going like, yes, go. And Will Smith's like, yeah, I'm cool. Like, but when
Will Smith was cool.
Yeah, but when Shia LaBeouf does it next to cool Megan Fox, it doesn't have the same ring to it because it's like, why would she be attracted to a guy who's constantly panicking? Like, when she's not panicking, why is he panicking, and why is that attractive? I have to know.
It's just so endearing.
It's just, like I said, it works for him. It doesn't work for other people. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.